So Arjuna said, "O mighty armed one, I wish to..." So the first section, the first 18 verses of this chapter, they deal with, again, a summary of Karma Yoga. In fact, 18th chapter is a summary of the different concepts presented in Bhagavad-Gita. So we'll see that how this section deals with Karma Yoga, how to dovetail our work and how to balance those two duties. I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Kesi demon, master of the senses. So Arjuna, for one final time, he wants to fully understand tyaga and sannyas, because that was his kind of idea.
So tyaga means the purpose of renunciation, right? And the renounced order of life is one of the orders of life. So it's a formal relinquishing of all our material attachments and living a life in the monastic order.
Yeah. So. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "The giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyasa. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga." So we talked about how, while living in this world, how to incorporate both these concepts in our life. So it doesn't mean that one has to give up the results of all the activities, but rather engaging the results of our activity in Krishna's service, we can stay in whatever situation of life we are.
And that is the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, that even while living a life of a householder or working as a, whatever work we are doing in our life, as long as our consciousness is connected to the ultimate purpose, to the object of our meditation is Krishna, then, and then of course there is some practical implication of that, which means that we accept those things that are favorable for our spiritual life, and we reject those things that are not favorable. So here it talks about the giving up of activities that are based on material desire. So if we are accepting those things that are favorable and rejecting those things that are unfavorable, then that is actually being in the renounced order of life, even though one may be living in the world and may not have taken on. So just having a saffron clothing on the body does not constitute the renounced order. It's the consciousness. And then the second one is the results. So we can do both of those, right? Even living in the world, we can do both.
Even living in the family life, taking care of everything, we can be practicing tyaga as well as sannyas.
I was just, the thought that came to my mind was a lotus flower, that it lives in the mud, right? But it's completely untouched by the water and the mud. In fact, if there's a drop of water that falls on a lotus leaf, it simply glides off, right? It has no way for it to stay on it. So.
Sarika, looks like I have to send her. Just 1 second. I need to send somebody to the breakout room.
To share again.
Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So the same discussion we had in the 3rd chapter and 5th chapter. That should I give up work?
O best of the Bharatas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scripture to be of 3 kinds. So even renunciation, we have already been discussing how there are so many things in the 3 modes. So Krishna is going to spend some more time talking about things in 3 modes. So renunciation.
Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So somebody may ask that, should I give up at certain, if I take sannyas, or if I go to that higher level of advancement, and do I give up sacrifice, charity? And Krishna is saying that these 3 things should always be incorporated. And for us, the highest sacrifice is chanting Krishna's names, japa yagya. Charity is sacrificing a part of our fruits for spreading Krishna consciousness. And penance is following the four principles of purification. And engaging our body and mind in serving Krishna and spreading Krishna's names. So that is the recommended, and even at the advanced stage, these things should not be given up.
All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. they should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Pritha, that is my final opinion. So I was just thinking that, and so this kind of, makes it very clear that even if I have a job and even if I'm working as a, in whatever capacity, I'm a family person, I work, a 9-to-5 job, but as long as I'm engaging in these three activities of sacrifice, charity, and penance, right? And I'm doing that without attachment or expectation of result. So neither am I attached to the work, nor am I really attached to the result, right? I do it as a matter of duty. At the same time, keeping my focus on my primary duty of life, which is to revive my lost relationship, to revive my lost consciousness, right? Which is lying dormant right now. So that is Krishna's final opinion.
Why does the Lord say, is my opinion and judgment? Whatever he says is the absolute truth. So why does he?
That is Krishna's humility. And he's teaching us how to present conclusions. So when we present, we say this is Krishna's conclusion or this is Krishna's opinion. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So he's instructing Arjuna, because Arjuna is thinking of giving up his prescribed duties to go to the forest, but that is not recommended for him. So Krishna is saying that kind of renunciation is in the mode of ignorance, when we whimsically give up our duties.
Just because they're difficult, right, to execute. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. So it's sort of like grapes are sour, right? Like this, this fox who goes and tries to get the grapes, cannot get it, it's too hard. Then in frustration, he says, oh, the grapes are just sour, right? So that's kind of because it's troublesome or it's like it's too difficult. So that's renunciation in the mode of passion.
O Arjuna, when one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, and renounces all material association and attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. So he's renouncing material association and attachment to the fruit, and then performs a duty. So that renunciation is in the mode of goodness.
So we have certain duties, right, depending on what stage of life we are in. So we have to execute those duties, but not. So there is a whole spectrum, right? So some people whimsically become irresponsible in the execution of their duty, all in the name of spiritual, desire for spiritual life. And then on the other end, you have people who are so attached to their duty that they think if they do not perform their prescribed duty to the T, then they are not going to get the benefit, or it's not going to be auspicious for them. But when we have a clear understanding of the purpose of this duty, right, it is simply because it needs to be done, to set an example, and because it's what we have signed up for. And at the same time, we cultivate this our spiritual consciousness. Then that is in the mode of goodness. Sort of like two tracks, right, of a train. So a train needs two tracks to go, to be able to travel, right? So one track, you could say, is our material duty, and the other track is our spiritual duty.
I guess the bottom line I'm understanding from this section is that Krishna is saying that we should have a track of renunciation going in our life. And it's not that we wait for it till we become old, but even whatever stage we are, we should actively have that mood of renunciation and a practical way to apply that renunciation in our life. And that will keep us out of trouble in this material world.
The intelligent renouncer, situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work.
It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. The same point he repeats in the 3rd chapter. But he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. So again, the true renunciation is using the fruits of our action to serve Krishna.
Exactly. So what does it mean to really renounce the fruit of action, right? Because you can't really throw those fruits away, but we can use those fruits, whatever those fruits are, we use them for glorifying Krishna.
And this is a golden opportunity, because we know that the fruits also we are actually not the generator of the fruits. But we have this body through which we are able to generate some fruits. So this is a golden opportunity to use them in Krishna service before those fruits are taken away. But anyways, all the fruits will be taken away at the time of death.
For one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. So this is talking about karma, right? That there will be karmic reaction for one who is not renounced. So again, somebody might say, well, I'm not in the renounced order of life, so it doesn't matter, right? As long as we are following the principle of renunciation, even while living in this world and raising a family and being married and all of that good stuff, then we have no karmic reaction that will come through. Because that was Arjuna's biggest confusion, that he's not in the renounced order. He wanted to walk away. But Krishna is saying, no, you got to work, but just do it in the right spirit.
This is text 13 is very important. Text 13 and 14. Panchetani mahabaho karanani nibodhame sankhye kritante proktani siddhaye sarva karmanam. O mighty armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. So this is very interesting. We have in different places in the Bhagavad-Gita, we have discussed different causes, right, for any action. Now Krishna is going to summarize them together in one place, which makes it really easy to understand them. Adhisthanam tatha karta karanam cha prithak vidam vividascha prithak chesta devam chevatra panchamam. The place of action, which is the body, so that's the first cause of any action. Without the body, we cannot do anything. The performer, which is the soul is considered the performer here. The various senses, so our senses that we use. The many different kinds of endeavor, that's another vividascha prathak chesta, that's different kind of endeavor we take, that's another cause. And ultimately the super soul, these are the 5 factors of action. So in one sense, you can see if you just boil it down, you have the super soul, you have the soul, you have the body, and the various senses, and the different kinds of activities that we do, different kinds of endeavor we make. These are the 5 causes.
So I guess it kind of shows that sometimes we get so caught up when we perform an action, and we think that either we feel very like a lot of despair because it didn't go the way we had planned it to be, right? So that when we understand that there is actually not one factor but 5 factors of action, that it helps us to process. And then the second is that sometimes when things go really right, then we immediately start taking full credit for it. So to know that actually we are not alone in the execution.
And the other thing in this is that because we also studied how the modes of nature, they are also the doers. So the modes of nature, they are present in the body and the senses. And so that's how the modes of nature, they enter into this equation.
Prabhu, can I ask a question in this regard right now or later?
Yeah, go ahead.
For a conditioned living being, the body, the performer, the various senses and different kinds of endeavor is actually, he considers all of that to be himself, right?
Yes, for a conditioned soul, he considers the body. He doesn't make a difference between the body and the senses and the different kinds of endeavor. They're also coming from him. Yes.
And so the conditioned living being, when he reads this translation, he might say that, oh, so super soul and I am doing this, right? Like, so people have this understanding, but for a better understanding, how would a conditioned living being be able to tell that I am none of these, right? I'm just the performer.
I didn't understand your question. Can you repeat it?
My question is that for a conditioned living being, he would think that all of this is me, right? So when they read this translation, how would they be able to see that I am not the sense? The different kinds of, he might say that different kinds of endeavor is also coming from me, right? How is, and it is sanctioned by Krishna, and the performer is also me, and this body is also me. So I got confused reading this because I thought there are only 2 people who are doing this. So why is Krishna breaking it down into, like, the body is, the senses are the part of the body, right? Different endeavors are coming from the body. So there are 3, what is the goal of mentioning it into these separate segments?
Yeah, good question. The body is also a sum total of our prarabdha karma. So all our past karma is kind of summarized into this body. What kind of body we get, right? If I have a very intelligent body, or whatever kind of body I have, and plus the body is always tied down to the forces of karma. So that is implicitly present in the body. So the karma, although Krishna is not explaining that here so elaborately, but that is already explained in the past. So body is also represents the karma. The senses, they represent, they also include within themselves the forces of the three modes of nature, because in the third chapter Krishna describes how the lust resides in the mind, it resides in the senses. So our senses, they are always constantly driven by the three modes of nature. So that's what the senses incorporate. So somebody wants to understand it, basically you will understand it as me, like the soul, the material body, and the material senses. They basically represent the forces of nature, the modes of nature. Karma, my past karma is also a factor here, and ultimately the super soul. Super soul is the Upadrashta and Anumanta. He's the sanctioner and the overseer, right? So that's what, if you want to rehash it, that those are the four factors actually that is working. Prakriti, then the two Purushas, which is the soul and the super soul, Prakriti, Purusha, and the karma. And ultimately everything is happening under the influence of time, right? So time is another factor, which Krishna doesn't mention here, but he mentions it elsewhere. But the different kinds of endeavor actually represents time, because to execute any kind of endeavor, time is needed. So time is incorporated into the many different kinds of endeavor. Now the different kinds of endeavor, they can be coming from me, or they can be like, there's so many endeavors going on, which are arranged by other living entities, right? And we just become a part of those endeavors. Like somebody is doing a job. So I did not create the company, I just got a job there. But that whole company was created by somebody else, somebody else's idea, right? So other living entities are, they are brought into this picture by many different kinds of endeavor. That's how I understand it. Does that help, Radhika?
It really helps, Prabhu, really helps, because I think karma, modes, time, because I was actually wanting to hear about time and you brought in that aspect also. So I think really, really nice explanation. Thank you.
Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these five factors. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. And that is a very big cause for our despondency in life, right? Because we get so consumed by what we have not done right in the past, and I wish this, and if only I had done it this way and that way, right? So when we understand that there are so many factors, and ultimately that's, so much of what's happening is actually driven by forces that we have, sometimes, and it happens to all of us, that sometimes we go through life situations and we just feel like we are just a bystander and we are watching life unfold in front of us, to us, and we have a choice at that time how we are going to respond to it.
Yeah, two examples come to my mind, that how Maharaj Yudhishthira, after the battle of Kurukshetra, he was lamenting that he was the cause of this all the deaths that happened. So he was again ignoring these other factors. And Bhishmadev had to teach him that the powerful hand of destiny, which is ultimately under the control of Krishna, that basically made this happen. So you should not think yourself as responsible for the deaths of so many people. And the other example is when the demigods, they lost all their kingdom, and they really wanted to get it back from the demons, and the time was not in their favor. So Krishna says, just wait right now. This is not your time. So wait it out, and when the right time comes, then you will get it back. But if you try to exert right now, you will get opposite results. So that's another example of how.
Very nice. Yeah, it's very nice. And it's true, right? Especially, I think, I find that, like even when sometimes we look at karma, right? But then when you see, like even in astrology, right, how, there's certain things that are happening at certain periods of your life, right? And so that shows that there is a time factor that is so much in control with, the happenings. And we think it's happening, because of myself. Or,
Mm.
One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions.
So again, this is kind of direct instruction to Arjuna that he should fight, and as long as he's not motivated by false ego means one has to be motivated by positive ego, which is our connection with Krishna. That is the true ego, which means that I am a servant of Krishna. That is our true ego. And when one acts in that state of mind, then he's not entangled, basically. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So the factors motivating any action, you need to have knowledge about something, right? If you want to do something, you need to have knowledge about that thing. The object of knowledge is what we have knowledge about, right? And the knower, which is the person who is. So if you want to go and buy some diamonds, then you need to have knowledge about the diamonds. You need to have, so diamonds are the object of knowledge. The different categories of diamonds and things like that, that is knowledge about the diamonds, and you are the knower. So that three factors motivate action, and then the next one is obvious. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action.
According to the three modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge: action and performer of action. Now hear of them from me.
So starting this verse, Krishna is again going to do a recap of the 14th chapter, which is the three modes of nature. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. So what do you guys understand by this?
Let me stop the share.
Anybody who wants to explain what this means?
They see the super soul in everybody, so they think everybody's the same. So essentially, you don't see any difference between one living entity to another.
Yeah, that's very nice. That is true. That we can see how every living entity is part and parcel, right? Anybody else? Okay. Continue. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body, there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. So there is differentiation, right? There is us and them.
Higher and lower.
Yeah.
I'm better, or whatever.
So that's in the mode of passion. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness.
So as one is working in this very kind of put the blinders on and not really caring about knowledge of the truth.
Can we just see what I'm saying here? The knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunction has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is the product of the mode of passion. And knowledge concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Such a nice purport.
I have a question, Mataji. It is the previous shloka. Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
They said if we are in the mode of goodness, we should see Krishna in everyone, like undivided, like everyone should be same. When we look at the person, we should see the super soul in every human being. But my question is, we find few people inspiring and we find others who are not. So why do is making such demarcation showing disrespect to the super soul? But you are conditioned to be inspired by few, not by everyone.
Very good
So
question.
how do I not make any differentiation?
It's a very, very good question. And this is actually, when Krishna says Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, and he says that one should see the supreme spark within every living entity, then what that means, so that doesn't mean that we don't use discrimination in associating. So Rupa Goswami, who is one of our great acharyas, he actually talks about how there are different kinds of living entities, right? So there are people who are more advanced than us, so how we should associate with them. Then there are people who are spiritual practitioners, like our friends, our peers, who are also at the same level, how we should engage with them. And then how those that are innocent, right? There are people who are ignorant, they may not have the knowledge, but they're innocent. So how we should show, extend ourselves, and we should try to encourage them on their spiritual path. So like that, there's a lot of direction given in Nectar of Instruction of how to engage with different kinds of people. And then there are people who are who are antagonistic, or who are envious, or who might harm us. So it is described that one can actually engage in loving neglect, which means that we don't agitate them and we maintain some distance from them. So there is a whole science of how do we relate to different kinds of people. And it's not that just because we want to see that one undivided spiritual spark in everyone, that we have to treat everyone the same. We want to see everyone equally, but our behavior towards them will be different depending on where they're at. So for example, we'll treat a snake differently than we are going to treat maybe a cow, right?
And your question about, like, some people are more inspiring and some are not so much inspiring, that will always be there. But at the same time, a devotee always likes to see some goodness in everybody. So when we are able to see some good quality, even in the person who's not so inspiring to us, that will allow us to see that person as a spiritual being ultimately. And that's what it means to be a devotee, is to see good in everybody. Some good we can always find in somebody, even the worst of the person, even somebody we don't like at all, we can still find something good in them. And when we focus on that, then we'll elevate ourselves spiritually.
What I yes, Delia, go ahead.
What I get out of this verse as well is that even if somebody is behaving badly, if they're in the mode of passion, or if they're in the mode of ignorance, like with us and challenge us, we shouldn't think that just because of that they are devoid of Krishna.
Yeah.
Like they're part of Krishna, they're just in another guna. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And that's you see people beyond their covering. Right? So that is treating them with equal respect, but at the same time, we engage with people differently based on what is conducive for their uncovering. So some people, if you engage too much with them, you might just even agitate them. So then it's better to just leave them alone. And some people, you might be able to actually cultivate a friendship. Right?
I guess in our heart, we always desire their well-being, knowing that they are part of Krishna. And whenever the opportunity is there, then we do something that will help them.
That knowledge by which, this we already did all that, this already, text 23. That action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive result is said to be in the mode of goodness.
So now Krishna is going to talk about action in 3 different modes. So regulation without attachment, without desire for fruitive results. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. So you can see that in the world.
That action performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunction, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. I think we already kind of talked about this.
One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. So now Krishna is going to describe karta, which means the worker.
The worker who's attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who's greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. It's amazing how much Krishna speaks about the fruits of work, work and the fruits of work.
Everywhere.
Because that's
Hardest thing to give up.
it's the hardest thing to give up. Yeah.
People can part with a body part, but not with the fruits of work.
Yeah. Money is honey. The worker who's always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who's materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance.
I guess that these are the symptoms of mode of ignorance: procrastination, being morose, lazy, harsh to others, those things. O winner of wealth, now please listen as I tell you in detail of the different kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of material nature. So understanding and determination.
Those two things. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. This is so wonderful, right? That, this is the understanding that is so lacking in the world right now. We don't really know what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Right?
The whole paradigm is that do whatever you want.
Yeah, do whatever you want, and what is to be feared and what is there. And so we fear for things that don't need to be feared for, right? And we're not really afraid. Like Prabhupada said, our greatest disease is that we are not sufficiently afraid of Maya, right? And then what is binding and what is liberating? Who teaches you that in schools and colleges, right? What is binding and what is liberating? So that understanding is actually in the mode of goodness. And we can see that when in the world there is a greater predominance of goodness, then the world is actually a happier place. And when there is a predominance of passion and ignorance, then naturally, how can people get along, right? How can people who are conditioned or who are reacting from the platform of passion and ignorance, how can there be peace? Right? Krishna also speaks about that, right? Peace.
Yeah, that's O son of Pritha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, is in the mode of passion. So, kind of pretty obvious point. Or people who don't even consider religion worth considering.
That understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction of partha, is in the mode of ignorance. So when we don't have a proper understanding, a proper conception, and we just take whatever, right, and we see that to be religion, so then that's ignorance.
Yeah, people concoct their own religious system and say, oh, this is worth following, and then they attract some followers, and not really based on any true religious principles. So that's kind of understanding in the mode of ignorance. Oh, so now Krishna is going to talk about determination. Dhritya, dhriti. O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. Maybe we should do the purport for this.
Yeah.
That's a practical thing for us.
Yoga is a means to understand the Supreme Soul. One who is steadily fixed in the Supreme Soul with determination, concentrating one's mind, life, and sensory activities on the Supreme, engages in Krishna consciousness. That sort of determination is in the mode of goodness. The word avibhicharanya is very significant, for it indicates that persons who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are never deviated by any other activity. So actually, we've been talking about these three principles so many times, right? Great enthusiasm, but that great enthusiasm has to be followed by great determination. And then the third thing is patience, right? So those three things are really, really important. And determination is actually the key to be able to make spiritual progress, because we may really appreciate the spiritual path. We may even have a great desire. We may be so enthused and so inspired, but as long as we don't have sufficient amount of determination, and that's true in every sphere. Like I may have a desire to play the violin really nicely, but then I have to sit down every day and I have to, go through it's almost like, a work that is, like you sit down and you're practicing, and sometimes it's not that much fun. It's work. And that means it's sadhana. And that is the meaning that right now we may feel like I really want to experience the deepest feelings of love for Krishna. But in order to get there, there's a process that has been given. And so when we try to follow the process of bhakti yoga, even if, one day I may feel like doing it, the next day I may not feel like doing it, that requires great determination.
So the determination is not dependent on our enthusiasm,
Mm.
because when it is dependent on our enthusiasm, then it can go up and down.
Mm.
So therefore Krishna says utsaha,
Mm.
you need utsaha
Mm.
to do things in a positive way.
Mm.
And to feel happy about it, but you also need determination, which will get you through even when you're not feeling enthusiastic.
And that determination actually comes by the purification of our intelligence. So until we reach the highest stages of bhakti, we have to use a lot, we have to really purify our intelligence. And that when that intelligence is purified, then we can become fixed and determined that, yeah, this is why I'm doing it. And even though I may not, my mind may, move in different directions, I'm not going to quit. Right? So
I guess the best way to maintain our determination is to stay in the association of devotees who are determined and not use our mind so much.
But that determination by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is of the nature of passion, O Arjuna. So nice. That there is another kind of determination, and especially we see so much of this in India, right? That people are so determined to engage in all kinds of elaborate religious rituals.
Or people are just, they spend their body, burn their body for economic development. They will work 14 hours a day to create some kind of kingdom, empire for themselves or for their children. So that is determined. They are very determined, but that is again in the mode of passion. And that determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion. Such unintelligent determination or son of Pritha is in the mode of darkness.
The story that comes to my mind is the story of this man who got a pot of milk, right? And so he was very happy. So he was thinking that, so he goes off to sleep, and then he starts to like daydream. He's thinking that, and he hung it like from the ceiling, right? So he's thinking that, oh yeah, I got this, and I'm going to take it to the market tomorrow, and I'll sell this. After I sell this, I'll get some money. Then with that money, I'll buy a cow, and then that cow will give me more milk, and I'll sell that. And then it's like continuously like just go. And then he's like, yeah, and then my wife, she does something wrong, like she doesn't, like, I don't know, I don't remember the exact flow, but my wife does something wrong, and I get really angry, and then I guess he lashes at her in anger.
He kicks
the pot, right? So the pot actually falls down and it breaks, and he has no milk, and all his dreams are completely shattered. So I was just thinking that there's just daydreaming, and it's based on it doesn't go anywhere.
And I guess the determination in fearfulness is, some people are just perpetually fearful, and out of that fearfulness, they are not able to get anything done, or they're always in this lamentation. They're determined to be lamenting or morose all the time. So whatever situation is, either cribbing or complaining or lamenting, nothing good happens to me, or nothing will happen, and then that state of, but they are persisting with that determination. So that is in the mode of darkness.
We can stop maybe at 40.
I think let's finish the happiness.
O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress.
That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be the happiness in the mode of goodness. So let's hear from you guys what is happiness and passion, and what is happiness and ignorance.
That'd be nice.
Take some guesses, and people who haven't answered or said anything.
Go ahead, Dominic. You want to say something?
I was just trying to think. Maybe happiness and ignorance, I think, would be like having a lot of money, but like, I guess not working on spiritual life, or just like working to get money. And then happiness and passion, I'm not sure if anyone wants to take a guess, build off of my ignorance guess.
Eric, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah, I was just thinking, do you have any thoughts?
Okay.
What do you think happiness
All
in
right.
passion?
So happiness in the mode of ignorance would be getting pleasure from killing something, seeing others in pain, because some people get pleasure out of that, sort of a sadistic pleasure. So I imagine that would be ignorance. Passion would maybe be winning a competition, like a sports competition, something like that, where you're happy that you're the winner, but at the same time somebody else is the loser, and ultimately it's just a material contest. So I would say that's happiness in the mode of passion, and also happiness in the mode of goodness. Is that do you want me to give an example of that too?
Sure. Go ahead.
Well, I guess that would be, bringing a lost soul, introducing a lost soul to Krishna and having them begin practicing Krishna consciousness. I imagine that would be happiness. And I just wanted to provide an example of, I saw the quote just before you stopped the screen share about a poison that becomes a nectar over time. And I would say that, for someone like me, waking up before the sun is up and chanting 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra without any coffee would probably be very difficult in the beginning. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't been able to do that yet, but I imagine, based on the experiences of you and many people here, that eventually it would turn into nectar.
Yes.
Perfect example.
Perfect example. And that is true, that all of these practices, regulations, it just seems like so difficult. But that is actually, once, in the beginning it's like that, and then as we progress, then it becomes I always think that Krishna consciousness feels like medicine in the beginning, then it becomes like food, you can't live without it, and then at some point it becomes like a dessert. So
But as long as we are hanging out with devotees, everything feels nectar.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. All right, so continue.
Yeah, I just want to add, Mataji,
Yeah.
a small thing. Happiness and passion, I think we give undue importance to how others view us, and you're when someone, like when you're sought after, you feel so happy, or in job somebody praises you, you feel so elated. So always your happiness is based on others' perception of you. So whereas happiness and goodness is your connection with your atma, like it comes from within, it's your Sachitananda, like. So that's how I view it, like.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So basically, when the senses are continuously deriving gratification, right, from different things, in the beginning, it's like, yeah, I can't
Like
wait.
drinking, like people who are ready to drinking.
Yeah. But even like I was just thinking, like I remember when we went with Nimai to Disney World, right? I mean, it's so much stimulation. The senses, it's like a party for the senses all around you. But then by the time you actually leave, it's like, oh my God, you're drained.
I'm not coming back.
So something, like the senses feel a lot of stimulation, and then we consider that to be happiness. But then eventually, we are not able to, feel any happiness, and it gives us distress.
And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from the beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be the nature of ignorance.
So some people, they love to sleep, all day, right? Lazy, And illusion could even be like all kinds of intoxication, or like even addictions, right? Even happiness, where now we watch some videos about how people just spend their time just watching one after the other, Netflix shows or whatever, so those kind of happiness, it takes us away from our ultimate purpose of self-realization. So,
and they are miserable from the beginning and miserable in the end. So Krishna is now kind of summarizing here at the end of 40th verse that how there is no being existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems which is freed from these three modes of material nature. So kind of again a summary that these modes of nature are very powerful, and once we understand them, then it becomes easier to become free from them. So
I think we should stop here.
yeah, and then